involved with RSN for nearly 15 years. Support from someone who's been there makes all the difference.
Hey David, what are you listening to?
Kidney Talk, an online radio podcast that talks about kidney disease and the prevention of it.
Oh, cool. Where can I find that?
Oh, you can download it on iHeartRadio, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.
Oh, nice. I'll definitely have to download that.
Shout out to Renal Support Network, the annual Renal Support Network essay contest. I won the Renal Support Network contest last year, the Warrior, and we are all warriors. So thank you. Keep on doing all that you do, and be happy and healthy and keep the hope. Thank you, Renal Support Network. Woohoo!
As a kidney transplant recipient, I find that having an actual publication like Kidney Talk is an invaluable resource for any kidney warrior at any stage.
RSN keeps me informed of kidney advocacy issues so my voice can be heard.
I'm really looking forward to the prom this year and meeting people who are just like me. Dressing up is super fun and all the activities are amazing. Can't wait to see you there.
Hi, I've been participating in the Renal Support Network 30-minute fitness Zoom classes. Not only have I lost 15 pounds, but I can also strike a yoga pose like this.
When I created Renal Support Network back in 1993, I had no idea the impact that I would have among my peers. An illness is too demanding when you don't have hope, and peer support, education, and knowledge are crucial to our survival. We have a great week planned with some incredible speakers, great information for you to share, learn, so we can survive and thrive with this illness. It's imperative. So stay tuned. We're going to have a great event, and a shout out to our corporate mission partners for making this happen.
I just wanted to welcome everyone and thank you, Lori, for asking me to MC today. This is exciting as a mom of a long-term kidney patient. We've had a lot of experience, and actually when I first met Lori, I was trying to find a support group for my daughter. She was 15. She had just been diagnosed with kidney failure, and it was caused by a defective bladder. And we really tried to find other people because she was so alone in her diagnosis and didn't want to share it with anybody at school or tell any of her friends. So she was really isolated. So everybody kept saying, oh, call Lori Hartwell. She was a teenager kidney patient and she would be able to help you. So I called Lori, and she actually called me back, and we talked for an hour on the phone. And Jenna and I, my daughter Jenna and I, went to one of the patient meetings like this, although in person. That must have been 16, 17 years ago. And it was great because we met a lot of other people, and we learned a lot about the speakers were talking about transplant. I mean, I can remember a lot of the details because it was all so new to us. So thank you, Lori, for starting us off on a good path with kidney disease. And today our speakers are going to discuss, some of the issues that come up with having a child with kidney failure. So Lori is our first speaker, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. And then everyone, remember, you have to stick around for the end of the meeting. And off you go, Lori.
Good morning, everybody. I'm excited to be here today and share with parents of people who have kidney disease. I think, you're the backbone of all of us receiving care, especially when we're young, but we still need our parents when we get older. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I've coped with the illness throughout my life and provide some universal tips that we can all use. I was first diagnosed when I was 2 years old. And as many of you know, when you're diagnosed, you kind of feel like you're in a vice because your future is not going to be as obtainable. But the good thing about being a child with an illness is you don't have anything to compare it to. And so it's much different when you're diagnosed as an older person as to when you're young. Although it's not fun, I can see the difference of having diagnoses today as opposed to being diagnosed when I was a child. So I want to put this picture up because I had kidney failure at age 2. And these are pictures before 2 and after 2, because nobody took any pictures of me when I was sick. And I ended up, we lived in Las Vegas. My blood pressure and I felt like my head was going to explode. I was blowing up, and they took me to the hospital, obviously. And at Sunrise Hospital in Las Vegas, they didn't have the ability to care for me, so they shipped me to Children's Hospital in Los Angeles. Now, the thing that was in my interest was they just started a pediatric kidney program. This was in 1968. And we later discovered that my kidney failure was most likely caused from E. coli bacteria. I had eaten some meat that wasn't properly cooked, and therefore it caused my kidneys to shut down. I underwent dialysis at that time, and during one of the treatments, the transducer tubing burst, and because it was very archaic back then, they were putting things together, I imagine in some kind of basement or something, and had their glue gun up, but I don't think there were glue guns back then. But anyways, they had to transfuse me because I lost a lot of blood, and 14 hours later, my kidneys started working again. And the theory is that, because they couldn't test exactly for E. coli bacteria, but I had a form of plasmapheresis, happenstance. As the blood drained out of me, so did the bacteria, which allowed my kidneys to kick back in for 10 more years till I was 12 years old. And what happened was I had serious high blood pressure issues growing up, where they didn't have any pediatric blood pressure medicines approved at all. So they were using adult blood pressure medicines on me, which would commonly make me just kind of pass out at school. And, my real message today that I want to share with everybody is, adversity introduces you to yourself. And through my trials and tribulations and everything that's going on in my life, I'm so proud to believe that I created RSN because of the things that happened to me. And so something good came out of it. So I wanted to show a picture here of my mom and grandma. These were the two predominant women in my life. I grew up in a traditional family with a mom and dad, and my dad was a fireman, and I'm so grateful because he had great insurance when I was in the 60s. And then my life kind of crashed when I was 9 years old because my dad and mom broke up. I found out my dad wasn't my dad, and I was pretty much separated from the whole family and only had my mom and grandma. And what was really interesting is the renal care healthcare professionals understood this. And I can't emphasize enough how much a family happens in the kidney community because you need so much care. And I remember the nurses and even my Dr. Fine, who was taking care of me right now, knew that my family was having some challenges. And a message for all of us is, when somebody tells you something, you forget, you show me, I may remember, but involve me and I'll understand. And the doctors knew at that time, and the nurses, that I needed to be in charge of my care. I needed to know how to take my medicines. I needed to know how to take my blood pressure. I need to understand what weight gain and sodium. And so they really took it upon themselves to not educate my family, but to educate me. And that was life-changing because my mom and grandma suffered from another illness, and we've all been impacted with alcoholism in our life, and my mom and grandma both suffered from it. and they eventually became sober, but it was a little bit rocky for many, many years. And luckily, the healthcare team saw that. And I just want to say, anybody who's dealing with alcoholism out there, it is a chronic illness too. And we need to understand that and, help them get help if they need it. So my mom and my grandma were extremely strong women, but they had an illness too that they had to deal with. So I had to learn how to deal with my illness. They had to learn how to deal with their illness. And so here's another little universal tip that I learned, is that you really need to know what you need before you need it when you have such a serious chronic illness. And I'm very, very grateful that my mom allowed me to have a little black poodle when I was 10 years old. Now, I probably will get teary, but this dog saved my life. I can't even express it. When you are a child with an illness, you go through a lot of lonely periods because you have to grow up fast. You have to deal with serious adult issues, and sometimes it's hard to connect with your peers. I often said I had a 40-year-old brain and a 8-year-old body, because kidney disease can stunt your growth or make you look younger. And this little message continued throughout my life: know what you need before you need it, because I also know that knowledge is power. You have to know what you need before you need it. And so I became very aware of the things that I would need to know to survive. And I don't know where I got the gene to be so curious, but I like to read things. I like to Google things. I like to learn as much as I can and talk to experts. And that has really proved to help me throughout my lifetime. But one thing that I think is important, if you have a child who's dealing with an illness, if it's possible and if they want an animal, I would say that is one of the best things they can have, because animals give so much unconditional love. And Peppy here, which I got at 10 years old, and I look like I've been around the block a few times on that one, and I got that Farrah Fawcett hairdo going on, that he lived to be 18 years old. So I had this dog from age 10 to 28, and I'm sure he could write he was my diary, because I would tell him all my problems, and he never judged me. So a shout out to all the little furry friends and feathered friends that help us survive. So learn what you need before you need it, and it's instinctual, because you'll feel it. And I love this comment that I've been playing with lately, is that people do what makes them feel good, and or what makes them feel comfortable. And I think that we know what that is, and if it's positive, to continue it. The next thing I want to talk about is, growing up, there were a lot of people who didn't have expectations of me. And I think this is a message for you to understand with your children and people who are dealing with it. Is a lot of other people are scared when they hear the word kidney. And they're scared of, we have to face our mortality. I mean, when you have kidney failure, such a serious chronic illness, one thinks, am I going to be one of the numbers that don't make it this year? And the public is even more uneducated. So I would tell somebody, oh, I'm on dialysis. And, and I was on dialysis from age 12 to 24, was on for a short time at 2, and then from age 12 to 24. And you could see their face drop when I said, oh yeah, I'm on dialysis. Oh, I'm so sorry that you're on dialysis. And then they would just stop the conversation about my future. This was the thing that was so frustrating, because when I was growing up, and I did, I grew up with one of my friends was Miss America runner-up, and we would go out and people would talk to her like, what are you going to be doing in the future? And they would turn to me, and the conversation would be different. And it really impacted my psyche. And then I would come across other people that I would learn that just accepted me for who I am. And when you're going through it, it's really quite awful. But I can say um, today, thank God my illness kept the jerks away from me. They kept people away from me that would have ended up not being true friends. So I had to really learn how to like my own company. And I'm going to share a little bit later, but some of the things that I did. But and I like to show this picture here. I was married to my husband Dean in 1997, and we've been married 23 years. I do have to specify that he has an incredible health insurance plan. He works for the city, and he's younger than me. And the other thing that I think is important is that I learned who I was. And when you're happy with yourself, you become attractive. And I had to just kind of, find my way. So I encourage you to share this message with everybody. And, you hear people say, oh, I'm never going to find the one. Yeah, you will, but you have to become happy with yourself first. Because if you expect somebody else to make you happy, then that's just not going to turn out to be a good relationship. And going back to growing up with Miss America runner-up, Krista, who was a really good friend, and she's been married and divorced 3 times. And as I said, I've been married since 1997, and I am proud to say my husband gives me a anniversary card every month since we've been married. So, it's just hard to compare yourself to somebody else. The next thing, because we have a short time, 20 minutes to speak here. I'm trying to crash 50 years of living into a short little presentation. I want to really express that I love this quote. Your body cannot heal without play. Your mind cannot heal without laughter, and your soul cannot heal without joy. And I want to really credit my family of being creative. I remember my mother, I would get my peritoneal dialysis boxes, and we didn't have a lot of money, a single mom, and she was a bartender and cleaned houses and we never had any extra cash. And she loved to make furniture out of my boxes from peritoneal dialysis. She would get the contact paper and just go crazy with contact paper. And I'm like, oh my God, Mom, don't make a bookshelf out of my PD boxes. But she would construct this. She would probably be a big seller on Etsy today, or of these patterns. But there was a lot of creativity in our household, from making jewelry and note to speakers, turn off your phone. And my grandmother would sew, and my grandmother would cook. And all of this influenced me and my creativity. And today, as many of you know, I am a craft addict. I love to make jewelry. I love to paint. These are 2 of my latest paintings. And I think if you can have some kind of project, and this is so important. When I had to have my 4th transplant back in 2010, it was pretty dicey. And some of the skills that I learned over the years, when you're dealing with a very serious part of being ill, people don't know what to say to you. They come over and the conversation just kind of goes nowhere. And I learned that I had to control the conversation when people would come over. So my friend got me into buttons, and I'm not going to reveal their name because I have way too many buttons thanks to these 2 ladies. And I started playing with buttons and making jewelry with buttons. And at this particular time, I had written an article called Buttons Are Helping Me Keep It Together. And I had buttons on tables in my living room. And I would sort them out, and it was so much fun. And people would come over, and we kind of just forgot about what was going on, and we would just start playing with the buttons. And it was a really good experience because it made them more comfortable too. And then we could, kind of talk about what was going on, but we had a distraction. So I am a big proponent of having some kind of art project or some kind of activity readily available so that you can, and my husband got a note to get my dogs not barking, and he's getting fired today. I can hear him in the background. I'm like, you got to be in charge of the dogs for 30 minutes. And then I have a parrot screaming in the back. There's a lot of joy and laughter and play here with the puppies. So, but please take time to do an art project or find some way that's you can be creative. And we're so lucky because you can Google anything on YouTube. And RSN has a Get Creative Zoom class that, not a class, it's actually a discussion every month. And I am happy to give anybody any direction because I think I should have been a preschool art teacher. And then the next thing I want to talk about is, happiness doesn't depend upon who you are or what you have. It depends on solely what you think. And this is so important. And I don't know why I chose this photo, but this is one of the moments that you can always find somebody worse off than you are. Always. And when you have an illness and your situation is not so wonderful, it's great to help others. And my husband and I do animal rescue. I've always been into saving animals when I was growing up. And, there would be, something, a mouse in the house, and we'd have to no, you can't kill it. You got to let it go. And I had that compassion for other human life. And please respect that, because that's what makes you great. I see is when you can see other people suffering and wanting to help them. And this little mom, and they say this is her baby. We rescued this little dog from they were going to be put to sleep. And this is in the carrier, and this is supposed to be her baby. I think this is, I don't know. I think they put another dog with her. But we called her and this little boy pup Bonnie and Clyde. And I've, over the years, have seen these animals go to a home, to be successful. And it's such a great feeling to help others. If you help at a food bank or if you help in anything, get them involved, get your kids involved in helping others and seeing and make the full circle where they're making a difference so they can see the value that they have. Because when you have an illness and you're a child, the most important thing you need to feel valued as a human being. And I'm grateful to the fact that my parents and my mom and my grandma, they had their own illness. So I had to help them a lot. And I remember at one point that my mom, she was drinking a little too much. She couldn't make some decisions, and she told me to take over the finances. Now, that's a little bit, because I was really good at math, and I was and I was 14 years old. And she said, "Can you help me with this?" And I felt so valued because I would, keep a ledger of what money we had and what money we need. And there's a whole other speech on that topic. But giving me jobs and things to do was really critical in me feeling valued. And please don't do everything for your kids. It's just not good for them. And then lastly, before I give you some lessons on just overall happiness, because if you're happy and you take care of yourself, a big thing is you need to take care of yourself when you have a child who isn't well. You have to have a dream. And I didn't know what it was at first when I was going through all this back in the day. I was kind of just finding my way. But in the early 90s, I decided that, I wanted to create Renal Support Network because one friend makes a difference. And an illness is too demanding when you don't have hope. And sadly, when you have an illness as serious as this, when you go to the hospital, you don't always see the people who are the healthiest. You always see us in a crisis. Where are all the healthy people who have kidney disease, outliving their life? And so I created RSN because I didn't meet other people. And I wanted to create an opportunity for people with kidney disease to meet each other and give each other hope. But I spent age 12 to 24 on dialysis, and I went to school here and there, but I would get sick and they would send me home and I would get a home teacher. So I graduated high school, but I can't tell you one person from high school or junior high that I know today. So back in 1999, I decided to throw a prom for all the teenagers with kidney disease. Because I didn't go to my own prom, and why not? You know, I didn't want to have other teens miss this coming of age event. So every January we throw a prom for them, and it's quite amazing. We're throwing our 22nd prom, and I think about that. I'm like, literally, this prom is one of my children. And every year we have a great time. We're going to have an online prom this year because of COVID, but everybody's involved. And I have had the opportunity to see 2 decades of people who have kidney disease, my younger peers, grow up and just turn into wonderful human beings. And it's one of the best things I think I've ever made a decision to do. So you got to have a big dream in your heart, and when you do, you can just endure almost anything. And then lastly, I wanted to give a shout out to all the healthcare professionals, because there are so many people who are burning the midnight oil to make our life better. And I just want to express that when you have an illness, you know, you have the word happiness, but I think it's worth mentioning that when you have an illness, you go through the Kubler-Ross stages of emotions when you're diagnosed. And this is for the family too: shock, denial, fear, anger, depression, grief, and then finally understanding and acceptance. And I learned that it's impossible to feel these emotions to a point where I remember when I was angry so much, I didn't even understand what that emotion was. It's really important to understand these emotions and know that you'll get through them. But I can tell you for certain, I'm going to go through this. If you want happiness for an hour, this is a Confucius saying, take a nap. If you want happiness for a day, go fishing, or in my case, go shopping. Anybody want to go shopping, I'm up for it. The internet shopping is just too much these days. If you want happiness for a year, inherit a fortune. And actually, I'm missing a slide here, and I don't know what I did that for. Did I put it in the wrong one? Oh, if you want happiness, I didn't change it. If you want happiness for a lifetime, it's simple. You just help someone else. And I think the secret to happiness is feeling appreciated. It's impossible to feel unhappy when you feel appreciated. So make sure to let people know that healthcare professionals, your child, your spouse, that you appreciate what they're doing. It's so important, because that really is the secret to happiness, is feeling appreciated and appreciating others. So with that, I'm going to stop there, and I will be more than happy to answer any questions. And I'm looking at the time here. I'm like 2 minutes over.
We have one comment, Lori. It says, wow, Lori, wow, on so many levels. That's great.
Well, I will say that, you know, I wrote a book called Chronically Happy. And if anybody wants an audio copy version, I'll be happy to send you one. It's a CD version, because CDs are kind of going out of style. So we have some that we'd like to be utilized. But the real title of the book was Chronically Happy, Damn It. And I learned early on that, you know, I had to use my anger to be happy. A lot of times when I was suffering or I didn't feel well, I'm like, so I learned how to channel my anger. And some of the things that I gave as tips as arts and crafts and helping others was a way for me to get out of the anger spot. But anger is normal. It's a powerful motivator. It's very, very scary to feel anger, but that's what can motivate us to move. Because as I said, Kubler-Ross, shock, denial, fear, anger, then you go through some depression, maybe bargaining could be in there, and then understanding and acceptance. And this can all happen within 10 seconds. It can happen over the course of years. It can never happen if you don't get through these stages. So one thing I would really suggest before I wrap up is learn about the emotional stages and understand how you can help cope with each one and help your child cope with each one, because that is the secret to living a happy life. So thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the program.
Thank you, Lori. That was great. I just want to remind everyone, if you have any questions or comments for Lori, if you want to use that little chat button down on the, well, it's on different places depending if you're an iPad or a computer, but you can hit the chat button and then we'll pass on any questions or comments to her and she can follow up. And let's see, I just wanted to say, Lori, you reminded me of a comment. I asked this one young woman who had struggled with kidney disease her whole life. I said, what would you, as you know, as a parent to me, what would you say to me that could be helpful? And she said, it makes me feel emotional to say it, but she said, treat your child like you do, don't have the same expectation of your child that you do of your other kids, which, you know, you touched on that. But.
And a shout out to our corporate mission partners for making this happen.